Good evening, and welcome to the VIP room where we get once a week with Podverum members and anybody else who wants to take a peek and have a little discussion about how things are going. Today, I have a great friend and a great patriot join us to discuss what's going on in America and the world. And I know that many of you are asking already, can we ask him questions or just solve? Well, you put the questions there on the chat. He will see them and he will answer whatever question he likes. So it's up to you. Be respectful, be to the point, and you might get your question answered. And without further ado, because I know that today you don't want to look at me on the screen, let me bring in my good friend and great patriot, Lieutenant General Michael T. Flynn. Hello, General. How are you doing there?
Hi, Saul. And I'll answer questions that I don't like too. So don't worry about the question. Worry about the answer, right?
You know that means we might be here until tomorrow if you answer even the questions you don't like.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway.
Well, I see a lot of the names that I see, I'm looking at the comment section on this screen that I have on, and I see a lot of familiar names. So I really, a lot of the familiar names. Some of the names I don't recognize, but I see some Brian and
but
I
a
see
lot
brother, and there's a few others. I think Kathy and Christy, I see some of them. And so anyway, I just want to say before we get rolling into anything, just want to say thanks to so many people that supported my family and I over these last almost 5 years of just absolute persecution. And we still, I still say, where the hell's the Durham report, right? I mean, there's not going to be a Durham report. Everybody needs to, get off that. I mean, maybe we'll see, another person that gets held accountable that nobody knows, and for God knows what reason. But the lack of accountability in the country right now, unless you're a conservative, Trump supporter, pro MAGA person, and you peacefully protest, and you may have an R next to your name if you're a part of the Republican Party, then you will feel threatened by the institutions of our government, and that's a shame, but that's sort of the way things are. So we'll see if there's going to be any accountability.
Otherwise, you can callously kill an Uber Eats driver and get a slap in the hand for it.
Right. Or smash into a barrier and kill a police officer, injure. And I think the other police officer is still in critical condition in Washington, D.C. And you haven't even heard about it anymore unless you've seen a little bit in some conservative voices out there that are because nobody wants to talk about who that individual was that did that murder. And anyway,
yes, God forbid somebody may tie him. Yep.
Right.
God forbid somebody may tie him to Louis Farragut. Let me say one more thing before we start with this, because most folks, you recognize a bunch of names over there. Most folks don't know that you were one of the original members of Quod Verum, and you have been,
long
time ago, on the second day that we opened, and you may not post that often, though you've been posting for longer than 2 years. But I know that you read, and you know how much these folks have supported you through the past.
I do. Quod Verum has been terrific, and I just think the idea you created really just on the sort of literally on the back of an envelope. And I think that the discussions that I do look at and observe are really, they're brilliant intellectual discussions. You have some incredible talent, especially analysts. You have some really, really high quality analysts who are thoughtful and do superb research. And frankly, I may have said this to you before or others, but I sort of coined the phrase digital soldiers and in digital army. And I probably had the largest law firm in the world, ever in the world, fighting the deep state and fighting, our own government, our own United States government institutions, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the intelligence community, the White House, and in the case back before Barack Obama left, and then a little bit actually while I was there. But because of these digital soldiers that existed around the world, but certainly in the United States, and some really, really talented people came to our aid to analyze a lot of the information that was being put out about me, and they blocked and tackled for my family for over 4 years. And we used a lot of the analytic comments that we got from various social media means, to include Quad Verum, to include the Twitterverse and Parler when it stood up finally, and definitely Facebook and others. So we actually used that because it was people that were paying very, very close attention to my case, and they were analyzing what they were seeing, and they knew stuff was not true. They just knew it. People are not stupid, and certainly people that are paying attention to the world of information. We are in probably the largest, most well-executed information war that we've ever been in. These times that we're in are just totally unprecedented. No one in this country can say, oh, we've been here before. We have never been here before. We have never been in this position before. We have never had a U.S. presidential election that was stolen in the middle of the night, actually in the wee hours of the morning, to be more specific. And that's still being adjudicated by the entire country, because most of the people in the country know it. And you'll have a small percentage of people that are trying to hide or telling the rest of us, that hey, there's nothing to see here. Look elsewhere, and they put up all these other things in front of us, which is just noise to keep us from really focusing on what happened on the 3rd of November. And as we go through right now, various legal battles and audits. And so for those that aren't paying all that much attention, the things that we're involved in right now, for example, we are deeply involved. And this is the defendingtherepublic.org. And I'll market that one more time, defendingtherepublic.org, which is the entity founded by Sidney Powell, and it's run now by a small but very talented, very courageous group of people that are deeply involved in helping out the audit out in Maricopa County, and looking at 2.1 million ballots that were just in Maricopa County alone, that we know there was a fraudulent election there. We are seeing the states' legislatures in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Georgia, and in other states, Texas, Louisiana. We've seen a couple of cases that have been brought to light. We have seen cases in New Hampshire. We saw Claudia Kenney, the congresswoman from, I think it's the district of the 20th district or the 22nd district of New York, who never conceded and fought through all the way to the 3rd canvassing, and she's now a member of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. And the people that are now attacking the people that are attacking her are attacking her. This is the left now, are attacking her because they say the machines stole the election from her opponent, which was a Democrat. And so there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of things happening that people need to be aware of. And there's a fight brewing that's going to come up, because once we get through this Maricopa County audit, which is a full forensic, full signature, full mail-in ballot audit of 2.1 million ballots, and the election result in all of Arizona was I think it was 11,700, where Biden supposedly won by 11,700. Well, if they go through all these ballots out there and they throw out the ones that that were just pieces of paper with no envelopes means it's an invalid ballot, and there's a lot of those. If they throw out just the ones that are from illegal citizens who are illegal, illegals that came in and voted with no citizenry that were allowed to vote, if they throw out the dead voters, never mind going into the machines and doing the forensic audit where we believe that a certain number for all the state, in fact for the entire country, a certain number was put in before the votes even started on the 3rd of November. And the numbers that we've been told in Arizona could be as high as every machine having started with 35,000 for Biden at the beginning of the day on the 3rd of November. So that's one of the pieces of evidence that we have seen, in addition to at least 5,000 affidavits that all of them are from people around in various states, from pretty much every state in the country. But when you think about those swing states, right? 5,000 audits people have under penalty of perjury have signed these things, and every one of them is true. Those that have been reviewed by a court, meaning by a judge, every judge that has looked at the evidence has overturned the election results from Biden to Trump. Every single judge that has reviewed the evidence, the majority of judges, the majority of the courts, up to and including the Supreme Court, have not looked at any evidence, not a pittance of evidence. And I think that maybe you can post after this is all said and done, Saul. You should post Justice Clarence Thomas's dissent.
Oh, we did already.
The latest cases. Yeah. So yes. that particular dissent is really a beautiful dissent, because he's basically counseling the entire country and saying to the country, look, and he's saying to the establishment, the political class in our country, which is totally broken, Washington, D.C., don't trust Washington, D.C. to give you back anything. They barely give us back the $2 trillion that they're going to take out of our pockets again to pay other countries. What? I mean, one of the countries is, I think it's El Salvador, Guatemala is getting $4 billion. I mean, my God, what the hell is that about? So what he's telling us, what Clarence Thomas is telling us, is if we don't get our election system and our election processes right, then, the American people right now, they have zero confidence in it. And I went and looked at this past couple of weeks, I went and looked at some historical documents on elections. And in my military career, I've been involved in a couple of elections, personally deeply involved in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I've been involved in other elections overseas, particularly in Central and South America in my earlier days in my military career. And so where I wasn't as involved as I was in Iraq or Afghanistan, but I definitely was in the military, and I was in those countries at certain times when we were, doing things, or certainly islands in the Caribbean where we were getting rid of, juntas, right, that were taking over certain countries. So the United States has been involved in these things overseas, and so we should kid ourselves that foreign interference is going to occur in our country. And that's the one thing that I would say, is that we have, for those that haven't seen them, and if you haven't posted it, you should, or certainly if you haven't watched it, you should. And that's Mike Lindell's Absolute Proof, the most recent one that he did with Dr. Frank, a gentleman out of Ohio, which we came into discovering him only a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Frank, who is a scientist, a data science guy. He's a brilliant guy. He's out of Ohio, and Mike has him as part of what's called Absolute Interference, which is a documentary that's going to be out probably in about another week or two, maybe. Well, because Dr. Frank's pitch was so powerful, Saul, that Mike segmented out an hour of that, and it's called Scientific Proof. Scientific Proof. If you just use Dr. Frank's evidence, it's clear, and it's evidence. It's not made up conspiracy theory nonsense that the MSNBC or CNN or our mainstream media just loves to pound our heads over. This is real data, and it's from It's from each state's secretaries of state data. So this is not data that's made up. This is not data that he's making up. If you watch Scientific Proof, for those that get an opportunity, watch it. It's 1 hour long. It's one of the most powerful pieces of evidence that I've seen to date. And then Absolute Interference is going to be coming out here shortly, probably another week or two. And Absolute Interference, where is really about foreign interference in our elections. And what we all have to understand, and this really goes back to, so if you never watched or never heard of the documentary Kill Chain was developed by the Democrats to gripe about the machines pre the 2020 election. So prior to the 2020
they've been doing
election,
that since 2006.
Exactly. So the Democrats cried and whined about the machines, and they put out this documentary called Kill Chain. Amy Klobuchar and Guns Blumenthal, were two of the senators that were on there, and they're griping about the machines.
Is that the same Dick Blumenthal with such a wonderful service in Vietnam?
Yeah, I call him Guns Blumenthal. He's blazing saddles, blazing guns, Blumenthal. So here we have Kill Chain, which talks about foreign interference, and they, of course, it's the Russia. Well, let me tell you about foreign interference, folks. Countries have been going back and forth for years, for decades, for a century on foreign interference in elections, both into our elections and in us overseas. So we're kidding ourselves that it doesn't happen. Well, this year, this particular foreign interference in particular, much more egregious than they ever were, and that's Chinese. The Chinese clearly interfered in our election. And how we know this and what we see, and I will tell you that we're going to see evidence coming out here in the very near future. So if you take what we already have had come out, the evidence that's already come out, which is clear, and then you look at a guy like Dr. Frank's evidence, which is clear, which is based on census data. It's based on the each state's secretaries of state's data from the election, and then it's based on just basically graphing it out, the population over the age groups that actually voted in this election. And then you take what I know is going to be exposed here in the coming weeks, which is really, really powerful data. It's going to show that our country was attacked on the 3rd of November. Now, one little piece of evidence that already has been out, and it's been out actually, in one case, it's been out before the election. That's the 30th of October of 2020, the 30th of October, and other times I've talked about this, and that was an alert by CISA out of the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI themselves, yes. Right? The indomitable FBI. And that was an alert that Iran, on the 30th of October, that Iran was mucking around in our election. So there's foreign interference right there from the number one state sponsor of terrorism that this current crowd in the Oval Office is now kissing the rear end of. And on the 3rd of November, again, on the 3rd of November of 2020, they put out another alert. Those two organizations, CISA and the FBI, put out another alert and said, hey, the Iranians are mucking around in our election, in our national election. Well, if Iran's doing it, maybe Iran is acting, and this is my analysis, my judgment, maybe Iran is acting as a surrogate for China. Because when we look at China and we look at the deals that China and the Iranians have cut, and they've been working together for a long time. We look at China and Russia and the deals, the military deals, the economic deals that they've cut with each other, and they've been working together.
China has been helping
Iran. As well as
Iran.
Venezuela.
China has been helping Iran bypass sanctions for the past 10 years, easy.
Yeah.
So nearly all of
everything that I've spewed. Yeah, everything that I've spewed, out. These are all facts. These are all things that are facts. So what we need to do is we need to continue to encourage people out there in the world of the sort of the digital universe, those people that are out there that are whining and crying and and griping about, this or that. I mean, people need to stop. Everybody sits around and talks, but now it's time in this country for people to stand up and do, and to get involved. I mean, I'm trying to keep an eye on the right hand side. I just saw that, like Brian Cates said, Iran and China are more intertwined than most people realize. Our corporate press doesn't do any digging on this. Well, Brian, you are 100% right. They not only don't dig, they hide it. They hide it from the American people because they want this form. Our media, and a small percentage of people, and I wrote an article about this a while back, and basically in the article I talk about 2% of the passionate will defeat 98% of the indifferent 100% of the time. It's not a big percentage of people in this country that are socialist or Marxist. It's really a small percent. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4%, but they're very well organized. They are well funded, and they have an elite global network of people that have big ties to media, big ties to the tech titans of the world. That's why I'm censored off of most media, because it's a cancel culture out there, and I'm okay with that. I'll find other ways, and I'll get my message out, like through Quad Verum or through this chat room, right? Through this podcast. And so
it's always open to you. It's always open to you, and
this place.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
If they take us down in the big,
saw it pop up on the comment board. 2% of the passionate will defeat 98% of the indifferent, which is most of America,
yes,
100% of the time. So we will lose. We will lose if we're not smart. And so, like Christy Leibel says, MSM amplifies the Democrats and socialist voices. It's so true. I mean, that's what they do. So we have to create these forums, and you're one of them, right? Quad Verum. It's the truth, right? It's about the truth. So we have to have these forums, and we have to fight in this world of this digital information war that we are involved in. Most people don't know Chinese doctrine. And so I've studied Chinese doctrine. I've studied it for the better part of 20, 30 years, probably 30 years. Whereas when I first came into the military, I really studied, the Soviet Union, because I was coming in the very late 70s, early 80s into the military. So it was still the height of the Soviet Union. And then all of a sudden it shifted, and China became our sort of the adversary and the big bully on the block. And they really took a bigger role in after we got mired in the muck of Afghanistan and the muck of the Middle East in these wars that just never end. We're about to have our 20th anniversary of 9/11, and we still have troops and forces overseas with no end in sight. God love them. God love our military. God love the veterans who have fought in these just never-ending wars. And 20 years. This 9/11 is going to be 20 years from 9/11 2001. My God. And the number of the resources, the number of lives lost, the number of lives sacrificed, and I really sit here and say, I mean, I participated in 5 years of those wars from 9/11, 5 years for the most part in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere as we fought radical Islamists. So I find it fascinating that we're. And I was getting into Chinese doctrine a little bit. There's really, if you look at Chinese doctrine, in general, there's 6 components to it. 6 components. The 6th component, the last component, is really what I call the sort of the go-to gates of their doctrine, the going to the gates of their doctrine, meaning that's physical war. That is really, if they can't take us over economically, informationally, politically, academically, and they feel like they need to go to a physical match against us, then they'll do that. But why do that? Why waste the time? Why waste the resources if they can walk into our colleges and universities for 20 years or 30 years and basically own the science, technology, the engineering and math departments of our quote unquote leading universities, right? Our Ivy League universities, where we're finding we're finding professors. The one guy up in Harvard who was recently being the last few months, he was a professor. He was arrested. He was a chemist professor up there in Harvard. He was arrested. He was arrested for spying for China. So the Chinese have been in our academic institutions for a long, long time. They're definitely in our economic institutions. They're definitely in our media, in our technology institutions. Most people don't know that China owns about 30 million acres of prime property in the United States of America, about approximately 30 million acres. And that's not, some desert patch out in the Mojave. That is really prime property. And I always use two pieces of property as examples, just because of where they are. One is the Waldorf Astoria, the very famous Waldorf Astoria in downtown New York. Now, nobody may want to go to New York by the Japanese, because it's just a horrendous place to be. And then the other is the old
luxury hotel that was once owned by Japanese.
Chicago. So anyway, what my point is that we have to pay very close attention to what's happening, folks, and we're going to have to fight back in the world of sort of the digital world. We're going to have to fight back in the economic world. All of these, like the Major League Baseball recently with where they were crapping on the Georgia state legislator who said we need to have voter IDs in Georgia to vote, and Major League Baseball said, oh, we're going to pull out of there, or whatever I think that they were going to have there. I think it was going to be the All-Star game. But yet Major League Baseball, in order to get into any of these stadiums now, you got to have an ID to go purchase your tickets at the will call. So it's like, this is a farce. It's an absolute farce. It needs to stop. But the only way that it's going to stop, and this is where I will counsel everybody that's listening to this podcast, because it's not, people say, well, it's the politicians' fault. It's Washington, D.C.'s fault. No, it's the American people's fault, Saul. It's the American people's fault, because when somebody goes, well, the politicians, well, guess who votes those politicians in? We do. So we have to vote them out, meaning we have to go and make sure that and number one, we've got to get involved in our voting system. So our voting system there's been voting theft for a long, long time. I mean, the old unions and the Tammany Hall days of New York City, and then obviously the unions up Chicago, Los Angeles, and the big cities, where they would stuff ballot boxes with paper ballots. It's not who votes, it's who counts the votes, right? I mean, those kinds of things. All that's happened in the last 20 years, probably 30, but certainly the last 20, is we moved to an age of technology where now we use electronic machines. And anybody that knows anything about machines, and we're talking through one, and everybody's heard about all the cyber attacks that have occurred to our country over the last 10, 20 years. And there's been cyber attacks, massive cyber attacks to our country by China, primarily by China, and certainly by Russia, certainly by Iran, certainly by other nations, North Korea, Venezuela. So we've moved our election system into these machines. And so it's really easy now. In fact, it's simple. They can plug numbers in. When somebody goes, well, they changed the algorithms. Most people don't know what an algorithm is. All an algorithm is, and I'll try to explain it very clearly. All an algorithm is, it's like ingredients in a bowl of soup, right? If you have a lot of ingredients in a bowl of soup, it makes it taste good. You can put additional spice in. You can put maybe some sweetener in if you want to sweeten it up a little bit. You can put some meat in there. You can put some peas. That's ingredients in a recipe. Well, an algorithm is an ingredient inside of a machine. And when you put those, when you adjust that algorithm inside of the machine, you're adjusting the taste, or you're adjusting the ability of the machine to do something, to give it some capability. That's all it is. An algorithm in a machine is like ingredients in a bowl of soup. It's the same metaphor or analogy, and what it does is it allows the machine to do things that it would otherwise not be able to do had it had no algorithm other than what was created as a base, like like you create a base of chicken soup, right, in chicken broth, and the broth is the base. Well, if you have a base algorithm in all the machines, then the machines aren't going to adjust based on what you want it to do. There's a case up in New Hampshire right now in one particular, I think it's a county, and they're looking at the fact, and they say it that every machine up there started with 300 votes at the beginning of the day for Joe Biden, and this is coming out of an audit up in New Hampshire. Well, and you say 300 votes, that doesn't sound like a lot. Well, it's not that much when you're talking about one machine, but if you're talking about all machines, and frankly, in New Hampshire, the numbers of votes are not that many. There's not that many voters in New Hampshire, right? So the number of people that come out. So if you put an ingredient of 300 votes in every machine in a particular county or across the entire state, and it's for one candidate, that's going to adjust the outcome of the election in that particular state. So you are assuring the taste of that machine.
For people who think this is not that important, 300 votes in each of 3 machines would have changed the 2000 election, which George W. Bush won by the smallest of margins, 700 votes in Florida and something like 300 votes in New Mexico. Anybody who thinks 300 votes is not a big deal has not been paying attention to election results in the U.S. It's a huge deal.
And Leah LRP, and she says they think we're stupid. That's right, Leah. They think that we are stupid. They think that we're fools, and they think that we're not going to pay attention and we're not going to get involved. I mean, one of the things that we probably, from our defendingtherepublic.org effort that we are doing, we are taking on various cases. And personally, as Mike Flynn, I am also going out. Whether it matters or not, I don't know. But I am going to be a champion for courageous people who never got involved in politics, who now want to get involved in politics because they're getting off their dead rear ends because they've been sitting on the couch too long, and they have said, I can't take this anymore. I am going to now get involved in local politics, state politics, or national politics. So I've endorsed a bunch of people recently, Christy, and for the most part, women, because I think women are going to be the big answer. I think at the end of the day, women are really going to be the ones that are going to have to really step up, and they have. And I think that women are going to have to get involved more and more in our communities, in our political life of this country. They have to. Women are in the business communities. They're the soccer moms, they're the nurturers, and at home they're involved in school, town councils and school committees, and they're single moms for the most part. They're the ones taking care of the children of our country, and it's typically, in a split family, it's typically the mom who's got the children and also has to be the breadwinner. So I have met a whole bunch of courageous women who have recently been over the last few months, who have said, I'm going to go do something. I'm going to go run. So Christy McLaughlin down in Southern Florida, she's running for the district down there for the House of Representatives. Kathy Barnett, who I just endorsed today, in fact, probably an hour before this show. Kathy Barnett's out of Pennsylvania. She's running now for the United States Senate for Pennsylvania, I guess, against because Toon, who's a backstabber, Rhino, is stepping down, but she's going to run for United States Senator from the great state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Another gal by the name of Amanda Chase. Amanda Chase is in a field in Virginia, and I think you know this, in Virginia. She's running for governor of Virginia, and we've got to get. I mean, again, there's a lot of women in Virginia that are stepping up, and I talked to Amanda early this morning about some of the things that she's finding, and she's finding all these women for, their community, women for whatever county, right? And I actually think that that's part of what has to happen. It has to happen because our election system, and one of the things that we are doing is we're getting involved in precinct volunteers to teach people what to look for in in the deception and the theft and the lying that's going to occur in our election process. And we shouldn't have any confidence. And here I am talking about a 2022 election, and I've told people we shouldn't be talking about 2022 or 2024. We should be still talking about what happened in 2020, where Donald Trump probably won by, actually what we believe and what we've seen is numbers at 80 million votes for Donald Trump and about 65 to 66 million for Biden. And most of those were in the mail-in category. So Trump won the 3 November election, which was the constitutionally, if we were executed on the first Tuesday of the month, which is by our Constitution, and without all these other unconstitutional actions that occurred, that the United States Supreme Court failed miserably in its ability to maintain the fabric of our Constitution, we would still have President Donald J. Trump as our president. So, where I think he's at, I mean, he's the leader of the party. He should feel frustrated. I am all for, if he wants to run in 2024. We're still fighting to expose the truth. And the one thing about the truth, like in the political persecution that I experienced, that many people that are listening to this podcast, and you particularly, stood by my family and my side during that persecution. And I want to say thank you for doing that. Well, we're standing by the side of America right now. We the people, we're standing by the side of America to discover the truth. And the truth is going to come out. The truth is coming out. If you just go and look at some of the things that I've already mentioned, you're going to see that. You're going to say, oh my God, why are we allowing this to happen in our country? Because essentially it was in a sense, it was a false flag operation, and we were outmaneuvered. And frankly, I'm sick and tired of the Republican Party. I'm sick and tired of the rhinos in Washington, D.C. I say, that don't blame the politicians. Well, yeah, there's some things that we can say about them, but it's we the people that have to now get involved. I mean, there shouldn't be 80 million people. There should be 120 million people that vote.
Let me see if we can answer Donna here, because I believe she's getting it wrong. And she's not really listening to what you're saying. If we follow this advice, let's not get involved. Yes, let's not get involved and let's
voter election law. We're in deep trouble.
If we follow this advice, then we're guaranteed never to turn the tide. I believe that what you said,
here's the thing.
Participating in local elections and acting is the exact opposite of what she's positing over there.
Yeah, no. Well,
am I reading that correct?
A little lesson in the Constitution, and I think that for everybody, and I said this about a couple of weeks ago. The Constitution, I think it's 4,500 words, and it takes the average reader about 30 minutes to read it. So I would counsel everybody, and you can go get it online. Go get a copy of the Constitution, or go pull it up online. Get yourself a cup of coffee early tomorrow morning, and read the Constitution. One of the beauties of that document, and the founding fathers did for us, and they did it for a time such as this, because the founders knew, they knew what tyranny was. They were living in it. They were living in tyranny. They were living under a harsh monarch before the colonies became a nation, right? Before they became the 13 original states. So, and we went through a revolutionary war to do that. So they knew what tyranny was, and they experienced it. And so they created this beautiful document called the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And it's really based on the Bible. A lot of it's based. Somebody say, well, it's based a couple hundred years prior to the Magna Carta. Actually, it's a couple of thousand years prior. You read the diaries and the writings of John Locke, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. Read their diaries. Read the Federalist Papers and some of the 68, Federalist Paper 68, and I think the other one's 73. or 76. Read these documents that created who we are. And one of the things that they did was they created inside of the Constitution something called states' rights. And without states' rights, we would be under total tyrannical control right now by Washington, D.C. So we have states' rights, and we have states' legislatures who determine how we are going to be. So states can make decisions like the Washington, D.C. says, we're going to have a mask mandate. Everybody's got to wear a mask. Well, then a state governor comes back and says, we're not going to abide by your mask mandate. So on federal property, a piece of federal property in a state can have a mask mandate, but a governor can say, go pound sand. We're not going to have a mask mandate, and I'm going to leave it up to the citizenry of my state to decide whether or not they need a mask or not, or whether or not they need, to go do X or go do Y. I mean, we have states' rights, and that's a beautiful thing, because this is how our election system needs to be fixed. And the people of this country, you don't need to go gripe to Washington, D.C. or piss and moan on what Biden says or doesn't say on a given day, or what stairs he's walking up. What you need to do is you need to go to your local representative, and your locals, meaning your state representative or your state senator, and you need to get on their cases big time. Rally at their homes, right? Tell them that you're not going to take this. You're not going to take this lying down. We're not going to take this House Resolution 1, which is it's a
abomination.
Horrible. It's a horrible, big time abomination.
It's an abomination.
I was going to say something else, but
yes, but
major disappointment.
There are ladies present, General. We cannot use those words.
T Lady 62, Senator Toomey is a major disappointment. I remember him being endorsed by former Senator Jim DeMint. They're all disappointments. But back to the local and state level. This is how we fix this problem, people. Okay, we have got to be involved. So yeah, I'm encouraging people to run at the federal level, but I'm really down at the local level. So, for example, on the 21st of April, I think I'm going up to the Myrtle Beach area, Charleston area, and endorsing, for many of you that know Tracy Diaz, you know her as Tracy Beans. So I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to participate in a rally for a county commissioner seat, right? And we have to get involved. Like another person I'm getting involved in who's running for mayor of a major city. And we have to do these things. We have to get involved at these levels. And it's not just trying the big pie in the sky. Now I have a good platform, and I have a notoriety of, whether you like it or not, because of the lies and the deception and the pounding, the communist lie. Now it's the truth. That's what they've taken and created in this country. And we have a good chunk of this country that believes that Russia stole the last election, which is total nonsense. It's total nonsense. And when I say the last election, I'm talking about the 2016 election. Trump crossed Hillary Clinton, and we know now from what we've researched in our evidence that we will expose here pretty soon. We know now that there was some funny business in the machinery in 2016. They just didn't have the mail-in ballots at that time to come in at the the wee hours of the morning of the 4th or the 7th. Right. So anyway, maybe
that's the key. That's what really turned it.
I'm on a roll because I had a late cup of coffee. So let's maybe go. I'm looking at the comments board. It says,
okay. By the way, that is the big difference in 2020.
Yeah.
That was the big difference in 2020.
Lone Star says, sir, your persecution was hard to watch, but I followed every hearing and tracked the case from beginning to end as a fellow retired soldier. It was chilling to see what they did to you. Much respect. Well, Lone Star, thank you. And to everybody, I'm telling you, we survived. My family and I survived because of you and because of the people in this country like Lone Star and like others. Brian Cates is another one. Brian kind of had this nailed from the beginning. Brian was a big sort of, I followed Brian on Twitter, because Twitter at the time, until I got booted off of Twitter, I had over because I had 1.5 million followers. I kept saying "God bless America" too often, so they booted me off. Godless communists on that particular forum. But we would not have survived. We would not have survived unless and I knew the truth, but the truth needed to be pushed to the top. And that's what needs to happen with this 3 November election. So I'm a big fan. I love Mike Lindell. I've gotten to know Mike Lindell. And Mike Lindell, the media is going to tell you, Mike Lindell's out there trying to sell pillows. Bullshit. Mike Lindell has put his entire, excuse my Irish, I'm sorry I said that.
That's okay.
Mike Lindell
I do it all the
has
time.
put his entire reputation, he's put his entire company, he's put his life on the line for this country, because all he wants, he's an American story, he's an American hero. I mean, there's a guy that has, talk about from rags to riches, and he's giving up everything to help this country realize what happened on the 3rd of November. And I'm with him. I am shoulder to shoulder with him. And we are going to expose the truth. And then it's really up to the American people to decide how to respond to it. And that's why part of me is saying we've got to get involved in what's happening. We haven't really talked about the pandemic too much, or COVID, right? So I talked earlier in another forum about I've had a couple of family members who have been diagnosed with COVID. They had the respiratory challenges that I think people that this particular flu virus gives you. And in both cases, my one brother, I have a bunch of brothers and sisters, but one of my brothers got it, and he went to see his doctor, and the doctor prescribed to him Ivermectin, right? Well, the media doesn't want to talk about Ivermectin. They don't want to say anything about it, because Ivermectin, in 24 hours, he felt 10 times better. In 48 hours, he felt 100% better. Well, my sister, one of my sisters, she also was diagnosed with COVID, the same kind of situation. She had basically the flu-like symptoms, and she had a respiratory, difficulties. And so through the same doctor, through the same, basically through the recommendation of my brother, she took Ivermectin and was in 24 hours, she felt 100% better. So Ivermectin has been around for a long, long time. I've known a lot of people now that have used Ivermectin. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you, I'm not prescribing it because it's a prescribed medicine, but I'm telling you that I know people who have been taking Ivermectin now as a preventative medicine. And I know that in Europe and in the United States and in parts of South America, we're seeing the rise of the use of Ivermectin to prevent and to cure, basically, as a medicine, definitely as a preventative medicine, instead of going and getting vaccines and such. Again, I'm not a doctor. People have to. Health is a choice. Health is a choice, and instead of in the military, I will tell you, when I was in the military, health was the military's choice. It's like, okay, we're going to go deploy here. I mean, I don't know how many times I took Z-Packs and hydrochloroquine. I took hydrochloroquine for 30 years, for different deployed areas I went into because the water was terrible or the diseases were rampant. Talking about being on 6 continents over my career in some of the worst places on the planet. So I've taken hydrochloroquine. I've taken the Z-Packs, the zinc packs, those kinds of things. So I'm just telling you that in the military, you don't have a choice. You line up here, pull your shirt off, lift your arm up, or go somewhere, go into another direction and get the shot, right? And you get it whether you like it or not. Well, at this point in time, I'm not in the military, and I'm not telling people what to do, but I just know that health is a choice. I try to stay healthy, and I know how I feel. And, for people that are coughing or sneezing, or you don't feel too good, you got a headache or whatever, go see a doctor. If you don't feel too good and you're coughing and sneezing, you shouldn't go out and go into a restaurant anyway, right? You shouldn't go to church. I mean, my wife and I attended church. So I want to talk about church a little bit, because I think that one of the other giant communities in our country is the Christian community. the Christian community needs to come out, and the leaders. We need leaders in the Christian community to organize. I mentioned women. I think women are part of that community, certainly a big part of that community. And I think that women need to get involved in a much more determined way. But I think our churches. So I just did an example. My wife and I went to a service the other day, an Easter service the other day, early in the morning, and everybody was in masks, and it was all safe space and distances and all that business in the church. And you had to go up, and I mean, it literally had the cleansing material that you wipe your hands with in each pew, and you wipe your hands, and then in our case, you get the host, you put it in your mouth, you bless yourself, and you say some prayers, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking that a couple of nights prior, my wife and I went into a restaurant right down the street, same town, right down the street. The restaurant was mobbed. It was absolutely mobbed, wall to wall people. And if you were standing up, you had to have a mask on, right? You had to have a mask on if you're standing up. If you were sitting at the bar, you didn't have to have a mask on. If you were sitting at one of the waiting seats in the room to get a table, you didn't have to have a mask on. If you go up into this mobbed restaurant room, absolutely everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you're sitting down at your table with 5 people, 6 people, you don't have to have a mask on. But the waiters and waitresses that are like 3 feet
that's
above
because
you,
COVID enters through the people.
I don't get
That's
it. So
COVID enters through the
here we are in. So why are their church leaders not leading? Why are they so afraid of what it is? Open your doors up, allow, you make the call, right? So are the church leaders going to be arrested? I mean, I don't know. I saw a statement, a terrific, strong statement by the leader of the Church of Latter-day Saints. And I'm telling you, this guy's been around a long time. And I look at some of these leaders who make these strong statements, and it's really a strong statement. It's powerful. So what I'm telling you is that there are leaders in churches who are stepping up, and they're really taking their congregations to a new level. And they're not putting up with this nonsense because it really is. And there's leaders that are quote unquote leaders who are in these churches, and they're basically not, they're not doing what their congregations know that they wish them to do, right? Which is to tell them to come in, open these doors up, fill these churches back up, get people to start believing in God again, and get people to start thinking about how God needs to be returned to this country. Our Constitution is built on faith, and as I wrote about in my book, Saul, that I wrote about, we should be fearless. Our nation was built on Judeo-Christian principles and values, and we should be fearless in that belief system. And of course, I wrote a book about how do we win the war against radical Islamists. But it really, that particular line, that particular statement, that paragraph that I talk about that in my book, it's on page 111. I know it so well that it is really about how we need to be fearless about who we are as Americans. And again, our country is built on individual liberties. In order for us to breathe the fresh air of liberty, we have to understand that our country is built on individual liberty. So anyway, you got me on a roll.
It's a funny thing because that is in your book, and just about the same time I published Gander. I have a whole chapter on it and how we are losing who we are and how we need to get it back.
Yeah.
Well,
let me talk about the churches, because somebody just made a comment on the line.
Yes.
There, okay, and I won't say who it is. But about churches, it says many churches have been watered down for decades. I'm leaving my church of almost 20 years because my minister won't stop with politics. Actually, I'm just the opposite. And most people don't know the Johnson Amendment. And if you go back to the founding of this country, and you go for literally well over 100 years into this country, the local leaders, the ministers, the church leaders in our country, they were very much involved in politics. In fact, people went to them to get guidance because they were learned people. They studied both the Constitution, and they talked and they understood. And people from the community would go to them. They were very influential people. And this wasn't just in 1776 and 1777. This was for a long, long time in our country, right up until something called the Johnson Amendment. That's Lyndon Baines Johnson, President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Well, and I'll give you the nickel answer, or the nickel reason why the Johnson Amendment came into being. Well, when Johnson was running for the House of Representatives in the state of Texas, there was a pastor in his district that kept talking bad about him and really was totally against Johnson because what he believed in. And Johnson was really, if you look at Johnson, talk about a racist. I mean, geez, you get the word racism out there so much. I mean, really go back and look at his background and who he was. But this is LBJ, who was the vice president and then became the president after JFK was assassinated. So the Johnson Amendment, well, when he became the president, he created the Johnson Amendment solely because he was vindictive against that pastor in his district when he was running for a member of the House, and then he became a senator, and then he went on to become the vice president because he was Texas, and JFK, coming out of Massachusetts, knew he needed a southern state at that time, and that was Texas. So Johnson became his vice presidential candidate. Well, Johnson ends up becoming the president. He creates the Johnson.
Let's face it, being a Catholic, he needed a Baptist
to go after these pastors, and he creates this Johnson Amendment to go after the churches, really, to say no more will churches be allowed to talk about politics. I mean, I don't understand why not. I mean, I'm a Catholic, and I don't know how Catholic priests, I've seen a lot of them, good ones and bad ones. I don't know how Catholic priests can stand there and not say something about the Democratic Party in their life platform. And they also, I think it's 2012 where they took God out of the platform altogether. So, I just, anyway, that's my my religious sermon to the folks on Quad Verum, because it's important. This is really important for people to understand.
Yeah. There is something that people exaggerate on both sides. It is one thing to have a priest, a pastor, a presbyter have an opinion and share it with his congregation. It's a different one when the institution is used for political purposes. Those are two different things, and often both are conflated, so that the condemnation of the institution being used as a political, illegitimately as a political enterprise, is used to condemn everybody who opens their mouths, and that's definitely a mistake. I mean, I'm all for condemning all kinds of institutions, religious or not, who play an illegitimate role in politics. For instance, the people, Catholics, evangelicals, atheists, who are organizing caravans of illegal migrants to the U.S. and supporting them and financing them. I don't think that's a religion at all. I think that is the exploitation of religion. But some people would put it together.
Listen, I'm going to have to go here in a minute. Just because of other overcome by events here. So let me just offer this to you for a couple of things. I want to say thank you personally, Saul, and thank you for this forum and all the people that are on it for their support, their kindness, their generosity, for stepping up to help my family and I through what no American citizen should ever have to deal with in terms of being persecuted for my political beliefs, and stepping into the political world to help an individual run for and then become president of the United States. And there's a good reason why they needed to get me out of there. And I've said this publicly already, that just imagine this, that had I stayed in the White House, that there would have probably, the likelihood that there would have been no Mueller investigation. Okay. So we went through hell for 2.5 years of something called the Mueller investigation. And it turned out to be a complete ugly bomb that everybody knew was false anyway. So I just want to say thanks to you personally. Thanks to everybody that's on here, and then all the millions of people that are represented by the folks that are in this particular forum. The other thing I would say is that we need to keep these kinds of discussions going. We have to have these discussions going. Whether it's a podcast of 100 or a podcast of 15 million or whatever it is. This is how I am, leveraging what I believe I have been given a responsibility to do, and I feel very passionate about, which is our country. And hell, I could have just gone away and just said nothing and taken a pardon that I didn't need, that I really didn't want. But I was under the incredible, ugly judiciary system that we have, and we've all seen it in spades now with our election process. And just go away. But I can't. I have children and I have grandchildren, especially my grandchildren, and I want my grandchildren to live in a country where they can breathe the fresh air of liberty, and they can live, in peace, and they can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as I was given by my father, who was a World War II vet and a Korean War vet. And I have the legacy in my family goes back to prior to the previous century, the beginning of the previous century, serving in wars from privates to Navy chiefs to sergeants first class to sergeants, corporals, and all the way up to 4-star generals, So, my family has been one of service. And so the last comment that I'll make, and I'll go back to you, is that for everybody, people will, and the media and others will try to define you. They will try to define each of us. Everybody knows this. Somebody tries to define you, they box us in and call you some name. Well, what we've got to understand is nobody defines who we are. We define who we are. We define ourselves. And we do it through our actions. We do it through our words. We do it through, our fearlessness and our courage. And we do it through our fear too, because not everybody has the ability to, or the wherewithal or the capability to be able to do all these different things. And I will tell you that I'm not without fear. I just know that it is something I have such a deep-seated belief in and a deep passion for. And that is our country. And if we don't get this right, we're not going to have a country. As I wrote back last June, and I think the title of it is, if I don't mistake, the title is "If America Falls, Where Will You Go?" Right? If America falls, where will you go? Well, you'll go nowhere. There's nowhere to go. So for us to be the beacon of hope, for us to be the shining city on the hill, for us to be what I like to call the true North Star for the world, we are going to have to get involved in a much different way, folks. And this is a participatory government based on individual rights and liberties. So if you want to keep them, you've got to get out there and you got to do something more. So think about how you want to do that and get involved. And God bless you, Saul, for your friendship and for everything that you have done for my family and I. And I really appreciate the time here tonight.
My pleasure. Who would have thought that when I wrote a thread in May of 17, we'd be here today?
Yeah, incredible.
What and what an education it's been. I never imagined it would be as rotten.
It's been an education.
Yes, I never thought it was as rotten. I mean, I knew it was bad.
If they wanted to wake us up, thank you. They did. They woke us up. I'm awake.
They did.
I am.
They
Whatever
did.
they want to call it. I am awake.
No, and I told you once that I had once considered, since I've already been chased out of 2 countries, but at least I had a place to go. And when I ponder where would I go from here, it's like, no, this is the last place on earth. There is no place to run to. This is it. We lose this one, and we go into a new dark ages for the next 200 years. So yeah,
somebody
I totally
just made
agree
a great
with you.
comment about my wife. Saul, somebody just made a great comment about my wife, and she's pulling on me right now to get me out of here. We got another event that we're going to go to, but I just want to say thank you for recognizing my great wife. We're going to have our 40th anniversary here next month, in about a month from now. And
don't forget to send me a picture again.
Years old. So if there's 2 people, what I always like to say,
if I cannot be there, if I cannot be there, don't forget to send me a picture again, because I enjoyed vicariously. And you have a good one. Everybody. I hope we can do this again.
Absolutely.
And my very best to your lovely sweetheart.
Yep. God bless you. God bless America. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. I'm not going to keep you another 2 hours. I feel quite inadequate after this wonderful hour. It was supposed to be a half an hour, but there you go. And many things to think about. So let's keep it short and sweet. I have also been struggling with my stitches today. So my apologies if I'm a little bit less loquacious than usual. Hopefully they take them out tomorrow, and we can have a better time next week. Let me check your last comments over here, see if there is something we can... I see that you all like these. I hope we can make it a somewhat regular affair. I'm trying to get others to come and join us. Mike Flynn has been a staunch supporter of Quod Verum, and like I said, one of the 6 original members. And he was telling me before he came on how he recognized names, and as well he should, because he's been reading most of you and your Buy Mike a Beer Fridays during some of the darkest periods in his life. And one of the first things he posted in Quod Verum back, I think it was January of 19, was why Quod Verum is important. And today, he honored that very post of his by coming over and talking to us. I hope we can keep this going. This is the way, folks. This is no time for whining. This is no time for crying over spilled milk. This is the time to pull up your pants, roll up your sleeves, and get to work in local and state elections. We've been discussing this since January 7th, and we will keep pounding on it. And I'm very, very glad to report that there are over 15 quads who are running for different offices, mostly town and county so far. And I'm looking forward to assisting them in whatever we can. And if you want to do something of the sort, please let me know, and we'll try to assist. And with that, I know, like I said, it's a shorter program than usual, and I apologize for that. But I do need to go and rest. And Oh, this is quite the way. The quitters field is over there. If you want to quit, do it someplace else, folks. And thank you so much. And as you know, in the VIP room, we do not have um, a musical curtain of any kind. So I guess I'll have to put. Somebody said that this shirt reminded them of one that I was wearing when I was much younger. And what the heck? Oh God, no! I have to recognize these people. Sorry if I didn't recognize some of you today, but I was definitely trying not to interrupt the general much. So as we plan on the click, and since some people figured that, oh well, this is the type of shirt I was wearing 40 years ago, I just found that indeed it was very similar. Incredible. Thank you so much, folks, and you have a good night.